Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel. In today's video, we're diving into part 2 of Earth's Toughest Student Astonishes Classmates with Deathworld Tales. If you missed the first part, make sure to check it out to catch up on all the intense, jaw-dropping moments. In this episode, we'll follow Diana, Tyler, and their friends as they navigate the complexities of alien cuisine, cultural misunderstandings, and the surprising reactions from their extraterrestrial classmates. You won't want to miss a second of the drama and excitement, so let's get right into it. It didn't take long for Diana and Tyler to reach the cafeteria when they did. Brody, Caleb, and Jen were already there in line for their food. On the looks of things, they hadn't been far behind, as the three of them were at the back of the line with the other students attempting to keep a considerable distance from them. Diana and Tyler joined their friends, and were greeted by Jen once again going off on the food. I swear to God, if I have to eat another slab of raw meat, I'm going to lose my mind. Oh, come now. Diana said, don't you think you're being a tad overdramatic? I mean, to these people, uncooked food is just the normal way they eat. And what my biology teacher said, the reason they eat their food raw is because they have no reason to cook it. Brody said, raw meat for them doesn't make them sick. You can't get infections from it like meat from Earth. Apparently. Well, that would explain why all of our dorms' kitchenware was imported from Earth. They don't cook anything, so things like ovens and microwaves are an unimaginable concept for them. Diana said, well, Jen spat out. That may be the case for them, but I refuse to eat some uncooked slab of plastic when I get my food. I'm taking it back to our dorm and cooking it at once. The others turned to each other, eyebrows raised, and with a single collective thought in mind, why didn't they take their food back to their dorms and cook it all right? Then Jen, we'll follow this idea of yours, but on the condition that you cook our food, Tyler said. Besides, I'm the only one who's taken cooking classes here anyway, considering both of my parents work in 5-star restaurants back home. Jen said, not even bothering to hide the smugness of her voice. But the humans failed to realize was the presence of the certain pith rock standing behind them, waiting for her meal as well. Alia just so happened to hear the group talking about them returning to their dorm to indulge in this cooking activity. This is it, she thought, the perfect opportunity to learn more about these elusive death. If what the human with the short black fur on her head was going on about, then this cooking had to be important to their race, especially if the others were so willing to agree to this activity. Excuse me, humans. Alia tapped Diana on the shoulder. This cooking activity, I overhear discussing it, and I was wondering if I could participate in it. Oh, I guess. Sorry if I seem a little shocked. I just never thought that cooking of all things would be so strange to other sentient races in the universe. Diana turned to Jen, and without even saying a word, Jen responded, well, if it means introducing the galaxy to the most important concept of human existence, then I will be more than willing to cook your food as well, Miss Alia. Well, Alia, once we've gotten our food, follow us back to our dorm and we'll cook it up. I'm pretty sure the gravity machine in there is set, so that won't activate if any non-humans are in there, so don't worry about that. And said, once the group got their lunch, they began to make their way to their dorm. They'd have to pass through the history section of the school to get there, so they might run into a teacher or two. In fact, as they were walking by, Mr. Kiro was inside his class, still going over the notes Diana had left him. He'd finally gotten to the wildlife of Earth, and he was most fascinated by it. He was especially interested by these animals called owls, the strange noises they made, and their facial features. Mr. C.S. Rose might not have been a biology teacher, but this was certainly something he couldn't pass up. He'd even forgotten about lunch, that was, until he heard Diana and her friends walked past his class talking to each other. He looked up to see why they weren't in the cafeteria, and found them heading towards the dorm. Curious, he decided to get up and follow them. Once the group got back to the dorm, Alia was instantly enthralled by strange, otherworldly items. Years since everything in the dorm had been imported from Earth, much like everyone else's dorms. Having said items imported from their respective planets, she took the chance to take in what appeared to be human culture. The living area was something to be expected, but it was the contents of the room that she was fascinated by. A strange-looking tower, like a structure made out of plastic placed under what appeared to be a human TV. It had markings that Alia couldn't read. She figured that it was because it was written in the human native language. Ah yes, the PlayStation 7. The peak of video game power. Quite the console, isn't it? These bad boys are sold out almost everywhere. I was surprised when I heard they were able to get us one. Caleb said for the last time, PC is far better than anything you and your PlayStation 7 can muster last time. I checked. Those things still can't play games in 8K resolution, something that PC has had for years. Dean snapped at Caleb. Not only that, but we have far more variety in our game catalogs than you'll ever have, so you can take your exclusives and go beg on Sony's doorstep not to put them on. Steam. Caleb turned to face Diana now. Hold on just a min. Am I interrupting something? Mr. Kahiro asked as he entered the dorm. I noticed that you were walking towards the dorms instead of the cafeteria, and I wanted to know why exactly it is lunchtime after all. Jen walked out of the kitchen, appearing in a chef's outfit. Simple. We're cooking our lunches and cooking, Mr. Kos said in confusion. I think it's a sort of human activity or ritual they do before eating. I'm not sure what it is, though. Alia responds something like that. Hey, Alia, I understand your race is unable to consume capsaicin. Correct, I assume you don't want any on your meat, if that's the case. Jen asked. Alia responded adamantly. Of course not. Capsaicin is an extremely dangerous substance ground down and used in bioweapons. Even the smallest dose of that stuff would burn my insides out and destroy my body within minutes. Okay, wow, I knew you guys were all in baby mode when it came to existence, but I didn't think you'd die from everything under the sun, Jen said, her face in complete shock. It's okay. Alia humans are somehow capable of consuming capsaicin without any side effects. It sounds completely insane, but rest assured that they mean no harm. Mr. Kos told Alia, who herself was in complete shock of the notion. She didn't even have words. What about you? Mr. Keros, want to try your hand at human food? Diana asked him. I'm sure, why not, right? That'll be a vegetarian burger as well. Then Jen said, before walking back into the kitchen for the next 10 minutes. Alia and Mr. K heroes looked around the human dorm, taking in all of this unnatural culture. After all, it wasn't every day that you got to learn about Deathworlders. Most of their technology was similar to other races, and neither of them got any time to take a good look around hell. The two of them couldn't even take any books back with them due to being unable to read any written human language. Lunch is served. Jen's voice rang out in the dorm. The human ritual is complete. Is it time to eat? Alia asked. Yep, dig in. Both Mr. K heroes and Alia began to inspect their food. Neither of them could make out what was in front of them. There's meat in mine. Mr. K hero said, don't worry, it's not real meat. It just looks and tastes like real meat. They're called vegetarian burgers. Diana said, really, but isn't your race omnivorous? Why would you go out of your way to create some? People can be very picky back on Earth. Jen said, her voice seeming annoyed at the concept of such a thing anyway. You'll be able to eat it. It's not made of any actual meat. As for Alia, you've been given a burger, except the lettuce has been replaced with bacon. The cheese has been melted into the patty, and there's barbecue sauce on the bacon, which, by the way, has been cooked to perfection. Hesitantly, Mr. Keros took a bite out of his veg burger, and instantly his mouth was bombarded by what seemed like 1,000 tastes. For a few seconds he froze, unable to comprehend the tastes he was feeling. The tear even began to fall down his eye. Instantly, his mind began to internally expand, and it seemed like he was shooting throughout the cosmos at high speed. It took Diana tapping his shoulder to knock him out of his trance. Hey, are you okay, dude? Din asked. Mr. KAG hero simply nodded and spoke while attempting to savor every bite. Good, very good. Mr. Kos was one of the older staff members at the school, and never in his entire life had he ever tasted something like this. He simply shut his eyes and slowly took another bite, making sure to properly savor every single Alia who had been watching Mr. Keros this entire time took his tears of joy as a sign that the food was safe and wouldn't melt her internal organs. She grabbed her burger and inspected it one more time. Never in her race's concept had she ever considered something akin to burning meat on a fire. But the humans had apparently been doing this since their prehistoric times, One bite, that was all it took for her to instantly understand the importance of human concept. A heavenly taste of a roasted patty, mixed with cooked bacon grilled cheese melted in with barbecue sauce on top. It was like the gods themselves had blessed the food. The next 30 minutes of lunch went by, like a slow, eternal dream for the pair. The humans, on the other hand, ate their food like it was any other day. What they did after they finished was observe Mr. Kiro and Alia as they continued to slowly consume and savor their burgers. Even Alia, who usually munched down her food quite quickly due to her carnivorous nature, was simply indulging herself in a slow, savory bliss. Wow, they really haven't had cooked food before. Jen said in utter surprise, I rushed those burgers. How the hell are those to having what is basically a food orgasm from this? Well, you tasted what they were handing out from the cafeteria. If that's what they've eaten their whole lives, then just imagine the difference in taste that these burgers are for them. Diana responded. Either way, it's very entertaining to watch. Yeah, I guess you're right. It's not every day you get to watch something like this. Jen laughed back at the cafeteria. The students watched as a lone Reaver ran into the room panting. He joined the other Reavers at a table at the back. Zuka-ku, where you been? You've been gone for 30 minutes. Explain this disappearance. My apologies, group leader. Algag, I saw the Pyrox Athia leave with those Deathworlders and went to investigate. And what purpose could this investigation of yours possibly warrant another? Reaver said, hold your tongue, Alshon Algag said, before turning to Zagok. Speak, Zagok. What has your investigation found? Finds the Deathworlders. They have lured the Pithrox and Teacher K heroes into their domain and have subjected them to unholy temptation. Algag and the other Reavers gasp in shock. Unholy temptation? Of what kind? The group leader? These Deathworlders. They have tampered with the pure and holy sustenance that the Great One has gifted us. They burned its purity in unholy fire. I heard it all. The Reavers simply... Saints stared at each other in shock and began to murmur amongst themselves. How dare they? One Reaver bellowed while slamming his fist on the table. How dare these Deathworlders commit such sin and lure and others to participate in such activity? Another spoke out. Demons, hellspawn minions of the Dark One. How dare they lure in the innocent? Algag rose, his hands enough, my brethren. The other Reavers stopped talking, and Alag placed his hands in front of his face in a thinking motion. We must act, my brothers and sisters. The Great One commands it. So your group leader, Alshan, said, what we could be witnessing could be the start of the ancient tale of the Dark One's return. We must tread lightly. Got go, turn to Alshan tale. You don't mean I do? Alshan confirmed the tale that one day a race of demons would emerge from the void and destroy the purity of the Great One via unholy wars, sinful temptation, and vile sacrifice. The Reavers talked among themselves once more, fear beginning to emerge in their voices. What if these Deathworlders were the demons that would bring an end to the Great One's influence enough? Alshan spoke once again, standing up for all on the table to see him, what we may very well be seeing unfold in front of us, in this very school, could be the tale of the Dark One's return. However, as our ancestors did one before, we must do now, and the other Reavers stared at each other. We must prevent the impurity from destroying all that our mighty Lord has gifted us like our ancestors before us. We must, and we shall beat back the demons and send them back into the void. From when they came, the Reavers began to nod, giving sounds of approval. Alshan raised his fist high into the air, and when the dust settles and the blood of the demons dry, then and only then shall we embark on our great journey. With the Great One in sync, the Reavers raised their fists into the air, screaming out their kind's ancient war cry for the Great One. I'm just saying that PlayStation is better because of how we have better exclusives, and yet Xbox still beats out your console in performance. While this was going on, Mr. K heroes and Alia were finishing the last crumbs of their food. From the looks of things, they definitely enjoyed their meal. Jen simply gave a smirk. So you two seem to like my cooking. I'm flattered, honestly. I think I'm the youngest person to ever prepare food for an alien. Mr. Saros was still recovering from his food. Breathing heavily, he recomposed himself, or at least tried to. Mr. Kiros, never in my life have I ever tasted food so amazing, this cooking ritual. Do you humans always prepare food like this, Broy? Most of the time when it comes to light snacks, we usually just eat it without cooking it. Sometimes you don't actually need to cook food as it's already prepared for consumption. So you only cook your food if it's required for you to. Correct, not only that, but on Earth, there are people like my family who specialize in cooking and will dedicate our entire careers to it. And here I was thinking I had seen everything the galaxy had to offer you. Humans really are full of surprises. Just then, Diana's phone alarm went off the signal that lunch was ending. Well, I guess it's time for class. I'll see you guys later. Yes, I have a younger history class to teach right now. I will see you tomorrow. Diane A for second period. I'm Man J. I'll see you tomorrow. Then with that, everyone went their separate ways. As for Diana and Jen, they had war together while they were heading to class. They got to talking, so you think that space war will be different to Earth. War, who knows? Hopefully it won't be as boring as ours is. Jen chuckled in agreement after walking for a bit more. Jen stopped in the middle of the hall. Confused, Diana decided to ask if she was okay. Hey, are you good? Huh? Oh yeah, I'm fine. I guess Diana frowned. It wasn't like Jen to suddenly lose herself like this. Jen, I know you in all the time I've known you. You've never stopped in the middle of somewhere and lost yourself in thought. Jen looked up. She couldn't help but look at Diana with a saddened look in her eyes. It's just, everything's so weird right now. I mean, we're halfway across the goddamn galaxy with thousands of other people in this school who see us as walking, talking, killing machines. Yeah, I guess this whole situation is pretty right now to think we aren't even on Earth anymore. I guess everything seems so simple back on Earth. We went to school, did our work, and went home. Now we're solar systems apart from the rest of our race. I just feel so isolated, to be fair. Earth had its fair share of problems, too. Plus, in all honesty, you seem to be handling the situation pretty well. Yeah, I guess you're right. We should probably get to class. And with Diane agreeing, the two resumed walking to biology while they were. Diana turned to Jen. Hey, I've been meaning to ask, have you told your parents? Yet wait, do you mean Yes. Jen looked down at the floor. No, not yet. I mean, how could I? They're massive homophobes. Not only that, they're also on edge about work all the time. The last thing they'll want to hear is that their daughter is in a relationship with a girl. Hey, it's not easy telling your family that you're gay, even in this day and age. My uncle was the first person I told, and I asked him not to tell my parents for fear of how they would react. Of course, I told them. Eventually, my mother was okay with it, but my dad, it took some time for him to accept it. Yeah, well, my parents are religious, so they're naturally more homophobic than most out there. Diana stopped and turned to Jen. Hey, even if everything goes to, I'll still love you. Besides, I know that your parents compare you to others a lot and want you to be like them. They aren't the nicest out there. Diana put her arms around Jen. No matter what happens, I'll still be here, okay? Yay. Good, I am. Proceeded to kiss Jen on the lips, which caught her off guard. Luckily, she didn't mind it, however. At that same moment, the couple were unknowingly being watched from around the corner by a pair of Reavers. Is Zogok. See, I told you by the Great One they sent in front of us two females together. An unforgivable act. That's what you're concerned about using SunCon after everything you've heard today, about them being at least 10x faster than us. Them having the strength to lift us without a sweat, and them literally tainting the Great One's food. Your biggest concern is two females being in a relationship. Of course, you know what the sacred texts imply. Only a male and female may be together, and they must not partake in any sort of action that could lead to them fornicating before marriage. What we're witnessing in front of us are acts that clearly go. Alan's claws met, his face attempting to cover his disappointment in his friend's stupidity. Don't you think we should be gathering information on how strong these demons are and how we can beat them? We've already established that they care not for the Great One, in his words. For your information, that's your job. You're the one who's got class with them. As the group leader said, you are to gather as much intel as you can on how we can gain the advantage in battle. Once we have enough, we'll attack on K. Still think we should take care with confronting these demons. We are no match for them in a direct engagement. As for the mission, don't worry about me, worry about your mission. My war class is taught by a Reaver veteran of the Holy War of Viridium 5. I shall speak to him and use his knowledge to seek out ways to find weaknesses in our foe. Very well, I shall be with the group leader in our class discussing tactics, Two Reavers separated with Zula King to face Alshon. May the Great One be with you. Alson likewise. Alshon followed the same path as Diana and Jen, eventually reaching the class. Luckily, he wasn't late. Beam me greetings, everyone. I am War Veteran VRA of House Grey M for those of you who are new, but you may call me Mr. Vikra. Mr. Vikri looked around the room and spotted Diana and Jen. Mr. V. Now I've been made aware of two new students in this class, students, which are humans. Please step in front of the class and introduce yourself. Dina and Jen got up out of their seats, approaching the front of the class as this was happening. Alshon looked on intensely, something that Mr. VRI picked up on. However, he decided not to bring it up. My name is Diana, and this is my GF friend Jen. We're humans originating from the planet Earth, which is, from my current understanding, the highest level of Deathworld currently recorded. Mr. Vakery pondered to himself for a moment. He had heard that the humans came from an extremely dangerous Deathworld. He had even heard rumors of them coming from the highest category of Deathworld. But he took those rumors with great skepticism, as his old age had made him wise to such rumors. However, it appeared that such rumors were in fact true. I also understand that your race has quite a bit of experience in war. This confuses me. From my understanding, your race had never gotten into contact with other sentient species, up until you made first contact with the alien just outside your system. How is it that your race is as adept at war as it claims to be? Diana looked confused for a moment. She thought the answer was obvious, but she then remembered that compared to the rest of the galaxy, humans were quite self-destructive. Oh, infighting, lots of infighting, in fact, in most of human history. We've been fighting each other. It was only up until we made first contact with the Alan that our race unified. More or less, anyway. Mr. Vikri once again pondered to himself. The only wars that had ever been fought in galactic history were wars between races, and even those were rare. As for the rest of the class, a good portion were shocked at such a concept. Mr. Veer, for a race to be constantly in fighting, yet become a spacefaring species. Indeed, a strange concept. It appears that I have much to learn about your race as you have about ours. You two may seat yourselves, and with that, Diana and Jen returned to their seats. Mr. Veer returned to the lesson at hand. Mr. Vikra, now class, as discussed in the prior lesson, I will be teaching you about the Holy War of Validum 5, and how, despite it being called a holy war, it was a grave mistake that led to the death of hundreds of thousands. The class shook their heads in sadness. Every single one of them knew that the war was a terrible mistake on part of the Reaver Council, even though they had yet to admit it. Even Mr. VRE lowered his head in shame for a brief few seconds, his mind flashing back to the innocence that he had struck down in the name of the Great One. Mr. Vicer. Now, how this works is simple. Mr. Vicer tapped some buttons on his teaching pad, and a holographic interface of what appeared to be a battleground sprung up on everyone's desks. Each of you will be put into groups of 3 together. Your group must create and command an army to destroy the enemy forces. You will have all but the last 30 minutes of the lesson to complete the simulation. Remember, do not feel bad at failure. This is one of the hardest war simulations that we have to offer. Once you whiteness such a simulation, you will understand what it's like to command an army into battle, and the means that you have to go through in order to achieve victory. Begin with that the students began to get into groups of 3. This was a problem for Diane and Jen, however, as they were the only 2 humans in the class, and pretty much everyone else was basically scared shitless of them. Alaman's humans, I shall group with you, huh? Oh, hey there. Sure. Alshon took a seat next to the humans, observing as Diana and Jen inspected the holo projector. Okay, so I can't read this well, at least not properly. Yeah, neither can I. Oh, hang on. Jen pulled out her data P from her pocket, along with a wire that she plugged into it, and the holo projector. After a few clicks, the button prompt seemed to duplicate themselves, except appearing in a language that Alshon wasn't familiar with, which was English. I assume that these symbols are your species' native language. Yep, well, one of them, just the one that we can read anyway. After that brief discussion, the group began the test. Alshon was the most familiar with this particular form of test, as he had taken easier versions of it in previous years. However, he was surprised at how quick the humans were catching. Onan especially was learning fast. You learn quick, humans. I am surprised. I was under the impression that you were unfamiliar with this form of test. Well, depends on the context. Honestly, I'm more surprised that you guys class Command and Conquer as a test, and not a video game. Awesome. I'm sorry, what are you referring to? Oh, humans have video games on Earth that are very similar to this test. Actually, I have several Command and Conquer games on my PC back at home that function almost exactly like this test. I always had a thing for strategy games. Ally, let's just continue. Not long after the trio finished the test, which was something that most other groups couldn't say. Alshan was actually surprised at the results, as they not only defeated the simulation, but they did so rather well. Most of their actually survived the attack. Once it was over, Mr. VRI went over the results of each team. As expected, most failed. But upon looking at the results of Diana, Jen, and Alshan, he was taken aback. Mr. Vikra, well, this is certainly a development team 5. I wish to speak to you at the end of class. Diana, Jen, and Alshan looked at each other. They all had the same look of worry among their faces, despite one of them having a facial structure far different than the other two once class did end. Mr. Veer approached them before giving them an unexpected level of praise. Mr. Veer, well done, you three. I must say, in all my years of teaching, I've never seen such high marks on a test of this difficulty. I am Mr. Veer. You three have impressed me. Such a thing isn't easy to do now, Diana. Yes, Mr. Vaker. Mr. Veer, I will be the first to admit I spent most of the lesson observing your team. Reason being is that I've been alive and been in the military long enough to know how each and every race as well as their young react to war. Your race, however, eludes me and continues to today, continues Mr. Veer. While I was observing you, I noticed that you and Diana had several different approaches to the simulations tactics. However, we seem to be quite effective regardless what you two humans show me today, is that you have the knowledge to defeat an enemy that many in the Reaver military would have to spend years to acquire. You two should be proud of your results with that. Mr. Veer allowed the group to leave. Alshan, however, stayed behind. Mardecker, Alsan, you are allowed to leave if you want to. Is there something that you wish to discuss? Yes, Mr. Vaker, it's about the humans. They unnerve me. Mr. Veer, you aren't the only one. Most of the students among this school are, to put it bluntly, scared shitless of them, and rightfully so. From what the PE teachers have said, they can run faster than even the fastest of cars, lift ungodly amounts of weight that would cause even the strongest among our race to buckle and jump so high that they risk crashing into the gym ceiling. From what I've also seen, it's not just their cycle abilities that you should fear. I saw the mental abilities of a human firsthand. Those two are smart, cunning, and will only make moves if it is absolutely necessary to their end goal, something which new Reaver recruits won't understand until several years into their military service. Exactly what we saw today is what a young, inexperienced human is capable of. Just think, Mr. Vikra, if those two can do that, what could a fully grown human with decades of military experience like you be capable of? Mr. VR slowly walked over to his chair, sat down, and pondered for a split second. Mr. VRA, yes, a terrifying concept to consider. If what the human with the red hoodie D says is true, that humans have fought each other for the entirety of their race's existence, they will likely have thousands of years' worth of wars to look back on to draw knowledge from something that even we don't have. They are truly a race of warriors unlike any other. Yet you speak of them as demons. Alsan, the ancient prophecy states that demons, with power given to them by the Dark One Vi, emerge from the stars and attempt to destroy all that was gifted to us by the Great One. Yes, I've heard the story 1,000 times. I can see why you would think of them as said demons. But the prophecy also stated that those demons would be mindless beasts, and from what we've both seen, humans are anything but. That also consider the fact that said prophecy was created by the Reaver Council, the same council that started a holy war that to this day is seen as a desperate power grab and is seen by all as the Empire's biggest mistake, all except the council. Alsan simply stood there processing the words spoken to him. Mr. Vaker, if the council are willing to go to war over such petty power squabbles, is it really out of the question that they would create a fake prophecy in order to persuade youth, such as yourself, to fight for said power squabbles in the name of the Great One? The holy texts say many things that are widely debated, but one thing that we can all agree on is that the Great One created all things with free will and allowed them to progress as they saw fit. If that's the case, then it would be unfair judgment to label humans as monstrous demons for simply living life the way they see fit. I see it appears I have much to think about today. Mr. Veer, we both do. However, remember this. You're young and full of potential. Don't fall into the same traps made by the council as I did. Cast your judgment and make your choices as you see fit. Not the council. Don't go pissing off the humans. The last thing we need is an entire generation of Reavers confined to wheelchairs. That's a wrap for part 2 of Earth's Toughest Student Astonishes Classmates with Deathworld Tales. I hope you enjoyed watching Diana and her friends introduce the concept of cooking to their alien peers and witnessing the unexpected reactions. If you did, make sure to give this video a thumbs up, leave a comment below with your favorite moment, and don't forget to subscribe and hit the notification bell so you never miss an update. Stay tuned for part 3, where we'll see how these cultural exchanges escalate and what new challenges our heroes will face. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.